Hey, what's going on YouTube? So as a dice maker, there is a lot of really great resources out there for us, but not a lot of great videos on actually designing dice masters. So today we're going to look at Poly Dice Generator, as well as my process for getting everything ready to print masters. There's several pieces of software that we're going to need, the first being OpenSCAD. Once you head over to the website, you're just going to hit this download link right here. You're going to download OpenSCAD, you're going to open it, you're going to install it, and you're pretty much going to forget about it from there unless you get into further 3D design. It's a great program, lots of really good plugins. Our next piece of software is the Poly Dice Generator itself. You're going to come here to the GitHub. All these will be linked in the description down below. You're going to go ahead and you're going to download the zip. Once you get the zip downloaded, you're just going to head over to your downloads folder. You're going to go ahead, extract all, and I like to extract this into an actual dice folder. This way all my dice stuff are kept together and it's easy to locate, it's easy to access, and you're going to need to do that once you start getting into a lot of different fonts. You need to make sure that your fonts are in the same root directory as Poly Dice Generator itself. But once you get everything extracted, you can put your fonts in here. All you got to do is come here, click on Poly Dice Generator, and it'll open up this beautiful and wonderful program. So again, keep it in its own root, which is also where you're going to put fonts such as this Aller font that I downloaded earlier. We're going to be using that Aller font later on in this tutorial to kind of go through and customize this set of dice masters. So once you have that one downloaded, extracted, we're going to go ahead and grab Prusa Slicer. Now for Prusa Slicer, it's super simple. You don't need to go into a bunch of configuration settings and do all that. Just do the stock Prusa or Ender 3 if you have another one, or if you already use Prusa Slicer, you've already got it. But we use this for one small step in the process. So go ahead and grab it now. And that way we have it downloaded, installed, and ready to go. Prusa Slicer is completely free, and it's a really, really good program. Our next one is going to be Fusion 360. For this program, there are commercial licenses, there are educational licenses. If you're going to be selling your dice, I highly recommend the commercial and actually pay for that license. But this is where we're going to do our supports, our fin style supports that were made so popular by Ribinator. Next we have Chitubox. Chitubox is the slicer that I prefer for my resin prints. There are other options out there. I'm not going to be covering them in this video set just because I don't use them. So once we get all of our softwares downloaded, ready to go, we need a font. So we're going to go over to 1001fonts.com. This set of masters, the customer wants this Aller font here. So you're just going to search through, make sure the font has free for commercial use licensing. This is super, super important. But as long as it's free for commercial use, you can download it, you can make masters, you can sell those masters, you can sell the dice that you make from those masters, etc. A lot of them have the regular bold, italic, all those different options. Once you get it downloaded, you're going to go to the folder and you're going to go ahead and install it to your system. I typically look for True Type Font or TTF. Then we're just going to install for all users. Now, installing this is a pretty quick process. Once you get it installed, you want to go back to that Poly Dice Generator root and you're going to drag and drop that font right in there. If you don't do this, Poly Dice Generator will not recognize the font. It will go to a default font and you're going to pull out your hair trying to figure out what's wrong. So make sure it's there. Now here in Poly Dice Generator, we have two ways that we can manipulate the software. The first is here on the left. Everything that you want to do, you can go through and you can do it on the left. This is your standard scripting. You can go through, you can change your font, you can change your numbers, you can change your dice size, you can change your spacing. You can do all of that here on the left. But I don't like doing it that way. So we're going to work over here on the right today. Now if you do like the left, that's fine. Just make sure after every change you press F5 so it renders. But we're using over here on the right. The nice thing about using the right hand side menus is that not only do you have numbers, but you typically have sliders that you can adjust everything and watch it all change as you're modifying things. Now for font, like we said, we're going to be using that Aller type font. We're just going to type it here in this top box. If you want to do any different types of styles like bold or italics or anything like that, you put it here. Once you tab out, you'll see it changes, and then once it changes, you just want to make sure that it's the right font. So we're going to go back over here, and I'm using the number 4 because it's a very distinct number 4. This way I know that it's the proper font that we're trying to use. You can type anything you want in this box here and it'll display it in your chosen font. Just make sure that your font actually changes and you don't have the ugly default one from OpenSCAD. I think it's Times New Roman. Nobody wants dice in that. We're also going to go ahead and do a bold, so we're just going to type :style equals bold, and that's going to thicken things up for us so that they're easy to paint, so that you got nice depth, so that everything is easy to go. Now, once we get that done, underneath that we have the underscore font. So for this, if you want to change your actual underscore, you can do that. Now you see here I actually kind of messed up a little bit and changed the font, and now it's wrong, and now it's back to the Aller, right? So any little change you make, you got to make sure that it's right, and you have to make sure that it's the system font name, not whatever name is there. So you can do bold for the underscore, you can change your underscore. If you want to make your own custom underscore, you can do all of that right here, and that applies to all the dice. On all your 6s, all your 9s will have the same underscore. I don't really like this underscore for the Aller style. I think it's a bit thin. So we go ahead and we change it to the default, and we can adjust and play with it here in just a few minutes once we get to the individual dice section. So with font sorted, we're going to look at the actual dice that we're going to use. So for this, we're doing a standard 7-piece polyhedral set, which means I don't need most of what's on screen here. We are going to keep the standard D4 as well as the D4 crystal or the D4 jewel. It goes by many other names, but what we're going to do now is we're going to start checking the box or unchecking the boxes of the stuff that we don't want. So we don't want these D4s here, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of the D4 infinity. As soon as you check, it's gone. We're also going to get rid of the prism, or the shard as some people call it. Once you click on that, it's gone. We also don't need the D12 rhombus or rhomboid, though it is a cool shape. We're going to click on that and it's gone. So now we have the 8 dice that we're going to work with. And again, this is going to be a standard 7-piece set, but we're going to keep the D4 tetrahedron just so that I can show how to support it if you choose to use that style. There's nothing wrong with that style. It's classic. It is what it is. In here, our next section, we're going to be looking at the size. So if you want to change things up, if you want to make a full chunk set, if you want to make a mini set, you can do all that here. Now this is only going to show the changes done to the dice that we have displayed. So if we want like a 40mm D20, boom, type in 40, you got yourself a 40mm D20. But we're not doing a chunk, so we're going to take it down to 20. You can also go back in and take out everything except the one that you're working with, so that you see everything that you're doing to that one specific die. So now we got size. We're going to look at our depth, strike, and bumpers. Excuse me. So this is going to be your text depth, your text stroke. Changing your depth will give you more room for sanding and polishing in the future. I usually keep my depth at 0.7. It's just what works for me. Your text stroke, this is going to thicken out your numbers a lot. Okay, so right here we go into almost a bubblegum style font. We don't want that, so we're going to get rid of it, but that's what stroke does. Symbol stroke is going to be the same thing except for your actual logos on your 20s, your 6s, wherever you choose to put those. We're not doing logos on this particular tutorial. That's for another video for another time, so we're going to get rid of that. Now bumpers. A lot of makers out there use bumpers for their support material to help prevent chipping, things of that nature. So here you can go ahead and add bumpers, and you're going to notice it's only going to add it to about half of the die. I'm going to show you here in just a few minutes how you can change that, because then that can actually give you this really nice inset face look. I haven't made molds or dice from using this particular technique, but I think it looks pretty cool, and I will show you how to actually add bumpers on every single edge. But for this one, we're not using bumpers, so we're going to get rid of that. Up next, we have rounding. So this is your edge rounding, corner rounding, and your corner clipping. I personally prefer sharp edge dice. Not everybody does. You can go in here, you can change your rounding, and you have all rounded edges. This does have a nice effect, and Polydice Generator will show you where everything's going to fall out when you do this edge rounding, corner rounding, and corner clipping. But if we go ahead, I'll show you here what the corner rounding does. Creates kind of a nice little effect. I kind of like it, but again, I'm a sharp edge die kind of person. But if this is something that you're looking for, something you want to do, Polydice Generator does give you those options. So now with corner clipping is very similar to corner rounding, except instead of rounding, it just chops off the corners. Also, pretty cool effect, especially if you're using that tetrahedron D4. Stepping on those is no fun. So if you clip or round out your corners, it may save your feet one day. So we're going to go back to our nice sharp edge, and now we're going into the individual dice themselves. So with each die, you're going to have a number of options. You're going to be able to change the text size. You're going to be able to change the text location. You're going to be able to change a lot of different cool things on here. So let's get into it. So on this D4 here, we're going to look at text size. We're going to go ahead and take that down a little bit. Now, any change you make, you need to tab out of the field, and then it will apply the changes. If you still have that field highlighted, nothing's going to change. So we're going to take this font size down, and we get something that we like, but it's not quite pushed out enough for me. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to change our vertical push, and this is going to get your numbers closer to your vertices. Then we have the horizontal push, which will take it more left to right. And then the number 4 has its own horizontal push, because the number 4 tends to be the most unique on this die. So that will allow you to actually center up your 4 on your D4s and just manipulate that one number versus manipulating everything else. So once you get everything here, we're happy with this. We think it looks pretty good. We're going to move it back just a touch. And as you can see there, it shifted and everything looks pretty. Now your D4 text, you can actually come in here and change the text. This is all laid out specifically for each number. If you get in here and you want something different, you want to make this into a 4-sided D8, you can do that, right? You can change everything right here of what numbers are actually displayed. And all of these fields will correspond to the fields under it. So your D4 text corresponds to your D4 symbols, which corresponds to your D4 rotate, etc. So all of those fields correlate to the corresponding fields. So you can actually go through and individually do horizontal and vertical push on each one of those. Now we're going to take a look here at the D4 crystal. We're going to change out the sides a little bit. We're going to change up the text a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the longer body and the short points, so we're going to take 0.2 millimeters off of the length of the body, and then we're going to add it to the length of the points. And again, tabbing out as we do so. Now keep in mind the space on a D6, just with points on the end. So if you look at your D4C text, there's 2 blank fields there. We're just going to leave those alone. You can also do pips on these. You can do symbols on these. You can do all kind of fun stuff in here. And I highly recommend getting into the software and just playing around with it, checking out what everything does. There's nothing that you can't undo, right? So now we're going to look at the D6. We'll play around with the text spacing here, mainly to show you that your text spacing does not affect your underscore. So you can change the text spacing all you want, but that underscore is going to stay right where it is. The text spacing is really only good when you're looking at 2-digit numbers. We haven't gotten there yet. It's only a 6-sided die. But here, I blank it out. We type in an 8, hit tab. Now all of a sudden, we have a D6 with an 8. This is very similar to what we're going to do for actually putting on symbols. But again, that's a different video for a different time. You can also determine your underscores. If you want something more on the 6, again, it just corresponds. Here we're messing with the underscore itself. We're going to change the vertical push, get it a little bit further down, and here you can actually just change the underscore size without affecting the rest of the numbers on the die. So you can make it a bit thicker, you can make it a bit larger, you can make it a bit easier to read. Right here we also have bumpers. Now the bumpers portion of it, this is on every die. If you change all those to true, you go back up, you hit the bumpers button, you will have bumpers on every edge. And again, that can be kind of cool for that inset face look, right? Here you can rotate your numbers. You can really manipulate these die to get them exactly where you want them. You can do pips, you can do rotations, you can adjust different sizes. You can really do a lot. And most of those are modifiers. They're not raw values. So it's going to modify whatever you already have put in. Now we're going to take a look at the D8. The important thing on the D8 and anything above a 6 is your number 7. So we're going to find the number 7, and we're going to change our font size so that the number 7 fits nice and even on the face. You can see there that the corner is a little too close to the edge, and if we use that as a support, or if we get into sanding and polishing later, that can actually cause the edge to chip. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify our size. We're going to change that until the number 7 fits on there nice and pretty, and we're going to be good to go. Now there's not really a whole lot else that we want to do on here. We may want to change out that underscore push a little bit, depending on the underscore style and size you use, but we're going to take a look. There's the 6. I don't think that's too close. I don't think it's too far, so we're going to leave it. Up next, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the D10 here. Now, the really cool thing in PolyDice Generator is that you can not only change out your text size, your text location, all of that good stuff, but on the D10 and on the D100, you can actually change the length of the die itself. And we're going to show you how to do that. Once we take a look at the 7, make sure that all of our numbers are appropriately spaced from the edges and look good. We're going to go down here again with the bumpers, all the individual modifiers. It has all the same options as all the other dice in this set. And we're going to take a look next at the actual shape of the D10. You can do this for the D10, you can do this for the D100, and it's up towards the top there when we look at the D10 length mod. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this up to a 6. We're going to tab out of the field, and you see that it elongates it. We're going to take it up a little bit more to a 10, tab out, and it gets even longer and a little thinner. Now you can go up to 20 on this if you want. Make sure though that you take a look at all the numbers, because this can cut your numbers off at the corners, especially on the D100. However, this client wanted the standard short and thicker version of the D10 and the D100, so we're going to reset that and just leave it there. But you do have those options if that's something that you want to change and mess with. Again, highly recommend you just get in here and play with the software. So for the D100, we're going to go ahead and take down our text size to help make it a little bit more readable. And then we're going to go on to the D12. I'm pretty happy with how the D100 looks on that. For the D12, we do need to go ahead and reduce the size a bit, make sure that we have good distance from the edges. And then we're also going to play around a little bit with the text spacing. Now the text spacing on this one is kind of important because you don't want the numbers to run together, but you want them to be readable. You don't want them to be drifting apart. So once we're happy with all that, we're going to go to our D20. And again, same thing. It's just wash, rinse, and repeat at this point. We're going to make sure that everything is readable. We're going to make sure that everything's far enough away from the edges. You can go through and you can do individual modifiers, rotations, vertical pushes, horizontal pushes, all of that stuff. Once we have a set of dice that look good, that we're happy with, and again, all this has been in real time, so it's taken maybe 20 minutes to go through, we're going to go ahead and render. Now your render time will vary based upon your PC. I've already gone ahead and rendered these out for work with this video. However, I can tell you it probably took about 10 to 15 minutes for my PC to render. But once you hit that render, then you're going to hit the export as STL, and these are hotkeys F6 and F7. So first you want to hit F6 to render, then F7 to export as STL. Now this is going to export as an entire set, right? So in this one we have 8 different dice. So we're going to bring it into Prusa Slicer, and we're going to break all that down. We don't want one set of 8. We want 8 individuals. So as you see here, I have my different folders set up with Fusion supported, with individuals not supported, and then the full set. So we're going to bring in the full set, and like you see here, we move around the full set. We cannot manipulate each one individually. We cannot rotate them. We cannot support each one individually. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and we're going to split to parts. Now I kind of missed it here in this recording, but you see there it's like the 5th option down, 5th or 6th. So we're just going to come over here, we're going to right click and we're going to go down and we're going to split it from here. So there's the split. Now there's to objects or to parts. With dice it doesn't really matter. So we're just going to go ahead and split. Now you see we have everything on its own, right? We can move them, we can manipulate them, we can change them out. But the important thing that we want to do here is we want to export each one. So as you go through and highlight them, it'll show you which one's which. They're on the right hand versus the left hand. And then you're going to just go to export as STL. I put these in the individual no supports, and I just name them standard, D4, D4 crystal, D6, etc. So you can name them anything that you like, anything that makes sense to you. But once you go through and you export all 7, 8, 10, however many you're making, now we have the individual STL dice files. This is what we want for the next steps, where we're going to be adding the supports and we're going to be getting ready to actually print them. This can be done by various different software, various different slicers. I just like Prusa Slicer. It's quick, it's easy, it's effective. So once we get everything set up, everything is on its own, then we're going to start going into Fusion 360. So this has just been our breakdown on how to design them, how to break them out, how to get the individual files so that we can work in Fusion and Chitubox to actually get you printing your own Dice Masters with relatively good success. So make sure that y'all like, subscribe, comment. If you have any questions, feel free to ask those down in the description. Make sure y'all come back for the next part where we actually go through the Fusion 360 portion. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every one of you.